Check, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Can you hear me, gang? Testing. 1, 2, 3.
You're coming through. Hey,
I am coming.
Can people hear Buddy?
Hello. Testing. Check. 1, 2, 3.
If you can hear Buddy on there, somebody say something. We have one person there. So,
let's see. Hello. Check, testing.
Wow, this is so close and yet so far. We've got 2 people. Hey, guys, we are attempting. Yes, Valley Blue says they can hear you, Buddy. We can't hear you because, okay, so here's the setup. Hey, guys, welcome to Reality's Edge with Doc and Buddy. We're back after about a month hiatus, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Buddy, they can hear you, but I'd love them to be able to see you, too. Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be cool. But as much as sparing them the visuals of my presence, then maybe that's what the universe intends.
All right, people, we've got, hey guys, welcome back. Hey, Buddy and I have been working to get this going, as you know from the previous episode, where I held the phone up out while I was camping. Remember we did that, Buddy? Yeah, that. Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, so that's how we did it last time. And I said, Buddy, we have to do better than that. And that YouTube is how the live stream works, and there's more capability, but you have to get encoding software to work with I'm using a Mac to get Zoom or whatever. Buddy, we could have tried Skype too to see if it could find the Skype window. But I guess you're here, so we can hear you, right?
That's a blessing. At least we're making, and we could go forward this way. I think, for those listening, they probably would maybe prefer for us just to try and plow forward since they're giving us their time. God bless them.
Yeah, thank you guys. Patience. I mean, they've been very patient. We're 25 minutes late. We said we'd start at 10, and I scheduled it for 10, as you folks know. And I've been working for over an hour attempting to get this working, and we got it like partway because you can hear Buddy. We just want to get him onto the screen. We will do that for next time. How about that, Bud?
And we gave ourselves a lot of extra time ahead of time to try and work out the kinks, but in order to do it live, it just adds those complications. But we love you guys and we want to do it live for you. So we'll keep trying. We don't give up. We're tenacious.
Yeah. I've been working at this for. We're really close, and we got very close to getting both of us on the screen. But hey, folks,
a power-packed month.
Yeah,
that we've been away.
Yeah,
from personal experiences to what's been going on with ufology in general. We're in historic new ground.
We are.
For those new to this field, it's hard for them to truly understand how far we've come. In just the past year, it's staggering. The government has admitted the existence of these unidentified aerial vehicles.
Yeah.
Not even just calling them phenomena anymore. They've acknowledged the reality of these videos from the most state-of-the-art sensors that the U.S. has. They haven't admitted all the sensors. They haven't brought forward all the video, but they brought forth this evidence. They've now officially, in TTSA, has acknowledged that they're working with the military now on metamaterials. We know there's multiple different groups working on metamaterials now. It's not just TTSA. There are other groups, and there's fractionary groups off of TTSA. This is historic times we're in, and personally, in terms of my experiences, I'm at a real peak experience right now in terms of my life and my abilities and all these things. Everything seems to be resonating. I'm hearing this a lot from experiencers. I'm hearing this a lot from practitioners of psi. Are you hearing the same thing too, Doc, that there just really seems to be this ratcheting up, not just on the evidentiary level, but also on the esoteric level as well?
Yeah, a lot's going on. And I think it's very exciting. And I think society may have finally accepted that we're living in space-time surrounded by the unknown. We've accepted that it's just big for me, buddy. And I'm sure for you and our listeners, that the viewers, we finally accepted, it seems, some elements of our social system here, right? have accepted that there's something there that is unknown, right?
Yeah.
It isn't, bugs that are being misidentified, electronic bugs or physical bugs. It's not pilot error and misunderstanding, right? Neurological difficulties, whatever excuses, Venus, flocks of geese, weather.
It really takes me back to a special place, and that's Galileo Park.
Yes.
And Galileo, and this guy who saw before anyone else would see that our perspective on the whole universe, our whole belief system on the whole universe was inverted. We thought the universe revolved around us, and wow, how far have we come since Galileo? We couldn't be more insignificant. It couldn't be more the opposite of what people believed at Galileo's times. And now we know, as practitioners of this art, that there is some sort of a field that connects everything. It's some sort of a real substructure. This is not woo-woo. There's been 150 years of dice studies of the consciousness's ability to affect statistical probability, to affect physical systems. We know there's something weird going on with the two-slit experiment in consciousness and matter, even on the most fundamental level. We are on the edge, the precipice of tremendous new knowledge.
No, it's true.
Historic transition for humanity. And like a kid getting the car keys, we have a lot of responsibilities to rise to, Doc.
Yeah. Mickle in the Pickle says that we shouldn't forget pelicans.
We should not forget pelicans. They're very important to the whole, how much, this is really
misidentifications of pelicans. But buddy, I think what you're saying is exactly true. Galileo went through this, Copernicus, scientists of that era, because they wanted to show society that we needed to base our beliefs on evidence, not just on what the church said or philosophers of the days of old, but actually on evidence. That was a big deal back then, to go from evidence-based, because at the time, according to my reading of history of science, it was believed that logic was more important than data or evidence. And if the evidence didn't agree with your ideas, it's just because it was wrong. And no one believed what they saw. So you believed authority, again, church, government, and so forth. And now we kind of reversed that in the past 50 years, because we've had a lot of evidence for these phenomena, and people are saying, well, we don't want to look at the evidence again. We just want to go with our beliefs, which is that science tells us that this is impossible because they're too far away. The universe is too big. As you're pointing out to us, Galileo went through these scientists, and now just in the past couple of weeks, the military has admitted, they actually said, the Navy said, I think it was to Greenwald on the Black Vault site. It wasn't a press conference. It was a FOIA request. Did they say to him that we call these things UAPs? They're unidentified.
Yep. And we've gotten admissions in small doses from the military in the past. We've gotten incredible FOIA information. I oftentimes think of Victor Vigiani, who got the incredible NORAD information about tracks of interest, intercepted tracks, unidentified tracks.
Yeah,
that NORAD keeps records of these. And in order to have an intercepted track, they have to be able to, put the pieces together here. Something has to come into our atmosphere. They detect it and they scramble a NORAD jet. A lot of people don't know that NORAD has their own jets across the country placed, and they scramble these jets to intercept these tracks of interest. And you can imagine a meteorite is not going to be chased by a NORAD jet. These are going to be, and there are, multiples of these a year. And I know the government wants to protect military possibilities by admitting these advanced technologies are out there. But there's something a lot bigger going on.
You're saying NORAD has its own jets?
Yes, NORAD has its own jets that it scrambles.
Yeah.
And that's how they're able to say,
I guess so.
intercepted tracks. Those are the three different categories they have. And these are all public documents that Victor Vigiani was able to get somehow magically, kind of in the cracks at the time. But
unknown tracks, that's what they call them. Yeah.
Unknown tracks, tracks of interest, and intercepted tracks.
Right.
And of course, the intercepted tracks are the least they have a year. I think they have something like around 30 a year, but unknown tracks. And you can imagine, of course, there's going to be objects, meteorites and all sorts of things falling through the atmosphere every day. But to be able to intercept these tracks means something else. And even Luis Elizondo admitted something that a lot of us have known, that there's so much information in all of these different stovepipes that the amount of information is overwhelming. Think of if they did a good analysis of just the Nimitz incident, all of those radar records from all the different ships over days, the witness testimony, the videos, each of the jets' sensory data. This is tons and tons of data. And Lewis said the amount of stuff that we have now is so huge, it's become a security risk because the amount is unmanageable almost.
Is that right? That's amazing.
Yes, and that's a huge admission. And that
there's so much evidence for these UAPs, UFOs, that it's a security risk because there's so much data and no one's managing it. Is that what this idea is?
Exactly. He admitted that. And I think that was in the conference in Spain, when he was in Spain. Yeah, right. And it's not surprising. This is happening every day. We know about certain locations that the military has repeat encountered craft. We know about the Catalina. We know about Malmstrom. We know about off the coast of, Florida. We know that, and this is a fairly secretive thing, more amongst the Navy, I guess, but there is an incredibly deep trench called the Puerto Rican Trench.
Oh, really?
Just north of Puerto Rico, just southeast of Florida. And these craft are coming in from the atmosphere, tumbling into northern Florida, oftentimes into the water. They track them, go south to that ultra deep Puerto Rican Trench. And you would imagine, if you wanted to stay on a planet where there is an intelligent species, you'd want to be at the most inaccessible places. And it's one of the deepest places on Earth. And I didn't even know about this location, until just, I didn't know how deep it was. And I didn't know about all the different contact that the Navy's been having. So right. It's not just Catalina. There's other locations. And this is a big deal. And I think by the U.S. government suppressing this information, they're hurting society. They're not helping society. Every other country is doing this very openly now.
This is a very big deal, and we're just scratching the surface here. But I think, again, your basic premise here, it seems to be correct that they have finally opened up little branches of our own government, which is basically us. For those of us in the U.S., I mean, it's the U.S. government is us. It is saying this is real. We don't know what it is. It comes into our military operating areas. That's a pretty big statement, don't you think?
It's colossal. It's colossal. And it's also, I think, very colossal, too, that they are labeling it as a threat.
Yeah.
Even PSA is labeling it as a threat. We're militarizing a position against them just because they're, quote unquote, violating our airspace. And to have a militaristic position against a more advanced civilization doesn't seem to be the most logical of decisions.
Right.
To taunt a more advanced civilization by trying to shoot them down. They repeatedly do what we know from slide 9 of the Chris Mellon congressional leak is called instantaneous sensor disassembly. When we try
slide 9, the famous slide 9.
When we try and shoot them down, they're physically disabling the missile systems. I thought it was just electronically, but it is physically. There's a physical disabling of this equipment.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of biblical almost. It's like turning the other cheek. It's like, you shoot at me and I'll turn the other cheek. I could imagine they could retaliate with that level of technology.
I just want to say my mom's right here. Mom, do you want to say hi to our YouTube audience? I want to say this is my mom here. This is Jane.
Mom!
And she's going to show up here on the screen. This is Mom. Mom is 89. She took me to the first Earth Day where Pete Seeger was there in 1972. And she's been right about so many things that other people thought were kooky, including vitamin C and antibiotics being potentially dangerous. And this is the person in my life who encouraged me to have an open mind. Right, Mom?
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
I can't live with a closed mind.
That's right.
I can see a lot about your wisdom through your mom. Your mom.
People are saying hi to you right here, Mama, in the chat room. See, we have 9 people watching, and
right.
Time is just hi, and yeah.
Oh, welcome to it.
Mom was into homeopathy, like in the 19. When did you learn homeopathy, Mom?
Oh my goodness, I was.
See, this is open-minded stuff. I mean,
60 years ago.
60 years ago. So this is where why I was open to some of these ideas, Bud, because I know you can see her, right? Can't you, Bud? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's lovely.
Yeah, so Mom had this open mind, and people thought back in the 70s and 60s that she was kind of kooky. But she turned out to be right about a lot of it. I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of it, at least as far my views now, but a lot of it turned out to be right. And at the time, I even thought it was kind of weird. But now science shows us antibiotics overuse can be dangerous. Vitamin C is important, things like that. You don't need strong medicine to get better. You can find natural sources. This is where it started for me.
I'm sure there's a lot more wisdom.
The blood type diet. That's
really Mom's important. Into the blood type diet. We disagree on that a little bit, but hey, whatever works for you. This is the point.
But you know what? Moms have a powerful wisdom that we oftentimes say, and all this different psychics and people have said, acknowledge their mothers are the most important aspect of their development. Yeah. And moms are the spirit of all the holidays. Moms carry all the holidays for us. And, moms are so crucial. And I love you, Mom. I'm so happy to meet you. I love your son. You have instilled in your son so many wonderful things, not only by your genetics, but by your teachings. I see you in the wonderful curiosity and huge heart of your son. So God bless you.
He's very receptive.
Yes.
He's got an open mind.
Yes. And he's a smart aleck, too.
Well, there you had it. Cameo appearance from Mom, and thanks, Mom.
That's my favorite Reality's Edge, by the way. That just made this my favorite Reality's Edge.
She's a big fan, buddy. She's a big fan of you and the show here. So she's been paying attention, and I have to tell you, when I got interested in these topics of UFOs, we saw a UFO in the Everglades in 1977, 78.
Wow.
She's a bird watcher. We went down to the Everglades, just me and her. My brother didn't come, nor Dad. And we saw this glowing thing that I thought was the moon. I mean, what does a 10-year-old think of this glowing thing? And she said, that's not the moon. The moon's over there. And what you said, that's where they got me, huh?
I think so.
There
was a blackout right after that. The whole section there lost power.
Of Florida.
All night long.
Yeah.
And when we told the national
park ranger, he changed the subject. He wouldn't discuss it with us. And that's when I said, why won't they talk about it? This goes back a long ways for me. Why wouldn't you want to talk about this?
But the people on the bench next to us said, we saw it too.
You see, this is...
Wow.
So then I knew it wasn't just me.
We had seen this thing, and
he thought it was a moon. He said, look at the moon, Mommy. It's green. Look at the green moon. A kid, you say, yeah. He said, no, really look. And then I looked with my binoculars, and there it was, a green moon with gold all around.
So.
Wow, that is amazing.
So anyway, so it started with this sighting, and she was open to this could be something extraterrestrial. So it started for me at that age. And anyway, thanks, Mom. Thanks for contributing.
So much of holding the possibility of something as open, accepting the possibility that you don't know everything, allows things into your perception.
And that is where we are. It finally, as you're saying, buddy, very well, it's happening to our society. You can see it creeping in. We've seen it in the media all year. I mean, thanks to TTSA and Luis Elizondo and Chris Mellon and all these, that they have, the Congress started taking them seriously. And then the media said, you see it every week now. Oh my God, the Congress, what do they? And they make their jokes about the little green men, but then they say, well, what do you think it is? And they go, I've always thought there could be. So you're starting to see it, and it's exciting because it doesn't happen very often. It's taken hundreds of years to get around to this cycle again where we realize it's bigger than we thought. And yeah, it could be a little scary at first, but we'll get used to it. It didn't end when we found out we weren't the center of the universe, that we're just sort of an ordinary planet in an ordinary solar system. We're finding new exoplanets, seems like every week. And they say, maybe there's other people like us out there. And now they're saying there are objects in our airspace all the time. And we just call them unidentified phenomena. So that leaves a lot open.
And, what I love about it too is it allows us the next series of really important questions. If you accept a certain scientific real world reality and you keep yourself open to it and it gets validated, there's almost always a series of other important questions. And now we have to ask ourselves as a society these really crucial questions that are next. Why are they choosing to interact with us? What are they doing here specifically? What does their actions mean or portend for the future?
Yeah.
There's a lot of really important questions here, and everyone claims to have their own answers. A month ago, a little bit more than a month ago, I was down in Huntsville, Alabama. I can admit, I met with I met with some scientists and important people, and I had tests and everything done, and it was really exciting and fun and validating. And that night of the big tests, I was leaving Huntsville with a scientist. I don't have the authority to mention his name, but we had a encounter. We saw a UFO in the distance. It crossed the road ahead of us, 100 yards.
Yeah, you had the video, right?
The right side of the truck, 50 feet away. It was shaped like a tic tac, like this, but flying this way vertically. And it had this white blue light that was so vivid, so incredible, so undeniably. This is not. I could see the structure internally. It almost had forms on the inside that I could see. It reminds me very much of. I said instantly afterward, it reminded me of, in London, they have that giant Ferris wheel with the giant capsules on it.
Yeah.
It looked like one of those capsules, but one of the areas kind of all wide. I've drawn it a few times since, but it was so just instant, undeniable. Holy Toledo, this is definitely not a Earth-based vehicle. You knew at that moment it wasn't. It was illuminating the valleys as it traveled over, and it stayed to our right side for quite a while. And then it went behind us. Unfortunately, the scientist was smarter than I, but I was driving, and he was videotaping. It went completely around us to the front again, and then off like this, and he was still able to get some more footage. And it was such an amazing encounter. And at the beginning of the trip, we saw a really crazy, weird craft that for the first minute, we're like, is that a craft? Is that a craft? What is that? What is that? And then you put the pieces together and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not all these different things. This is something highly unusual. And then at the very end of the trip as well, too. So we had 3 sightings in like a 10-day period. At the very beginning, in the middle in Huntsville, and then when we came back again to the Bronx. And this stuff, let's just say only one of those is an advanced civilization. It leads to so many important questions society needs to be addressing.
But buddy, can I ask you? Yeah, no, it's true. Can I ask you? We have a question from one of the viewers.
Please.
Mickle in a Pickle wants to know: was your last video about UFOs just your opinion, or do you know something that we?
It's more than my opinion. It's information I've gotten from multiple different places. So it's from some of the top scientists. It's from my personal experiences and interactions. And it's no secret that there is discussions of this council of biological extraterrestrials that watches over the planet, essentially, and makes decisions as a group and tries to protect us. And the notion of post-biologicals, certainly in terms of science and probability, seems very logical. We see it happening with our society, of us slowly transitioning to a digital existence. And there may be just a short period where a life form is biological and chooses not to go post-biological.
I see.
So I believe that, the biological things are very precious, but the universe is created for life. And, one form of life isn't necessarily better than the other, but as a biological, I'm very partial to us. And I'm sure other biological creatures would feel the same. I'm sure there would be some holdouts who wouldn't want to go, digital or go to these other forms of existence, that they want to be holdouts. Yeah. I'm one of those cankerous old humans who'd be like, damn it, I'm going to stay biological. You can become a Google or an I person and instead of an iPhone. You can be an iPerson.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stay old and grumpy. And I'm going to develop my abilities naturally instead of through technology. But yeah, that's my belief system, that there is this council, and it's one of the belief systems I'm operating on.
Okay, yeah. I'm afraid I have to admit I didn't see it, so I'll have to look at it to see, make your answer make sense. But thanks for asking that question, our viewers. Mikkel, that was a good question. Yeah, we've got a lot of comments here from Sunsaver, Misha, and Shambhala Institute. And thanks for your comments, folks. We do appreciate you watching the channel, and we're glad that it means something. People are expressing their appreciation for the channel, but so.
Well, Shambhala is an amazing healer.
Oh, is that right?
Shambhala, amazing healer. And in fact, you know Shambhala. Shambhala was at your class and did just staggering remote viewing. Shambhala is Aman.
I see. It's Aman. Hey, Aman. How's it going? Nice to see you again. Yeah. Right.
Wonderful.
Hey, we have just to say, quick word from our sponsor, we have the intermediate class coming up November 8th through 10th, and I'll be teaching what I know about the Ingo Phase 4 system, where you can get into emotions and concepts and do mind probes. And it really
I can't wait. I'm so excited, Doc. I'm so excited. The first class, your class was, you've always been very influential in terms of my abilities and my exploration of my abilities. And, the last class was powerful for me.
Oh, thanks.
Several things that were directly from Ingo. It was like Ingo handed you something and you handed it to me, and it's made a difference in my abilities. So I'm very thankful. I'm really looking forward to this class, and we might even do some CE5s at night. I hear rumors of this.
So you're going to be there?
Yes, I'm going to be there. I'm going to make it one way or another. I'm going to make it somehow. God will make it.
Yeah, this is really, I haven't taught this one in a while, and this is where the really good stuff starts. In the early stages of RV, you're just making target contact, but after the aperture opens up, you can really start working and kind of look around the target and move around and really start describing what you're seeing there and not be so restricted by the initial phases. So.
And you know what? That's a really crucial thing for me. In remote viewing, I've had areas where I found that my fallback position of astral projection just worked better for me. And some types of details are more difficult for me to acquire through remote viewing. And some of the things you just mentioned are the exact things that I've had trouble accessing. So, there's different forms that have different purposes, but remote viewing, I've always had the belief it can cover everything if you know the system well enough, as well as these other guys knew it. And I'm getting that information now. I'm so delighted. Just things like the simple thing, there was multiple in your last class, but a quick gem from the last class for our viewers is about advanced perceptions. Yeah. Oftentimes we have these intuitive guesses that can happen even in the morning before you even do your viewing. And it sticks with you all day, this advanced perception of something, this sense. And you can take that and no longer acknowledge it as a confusing thing. You can now take it and accept it and put it on a shelf and say, this is an advanced perception.
Right. That's the big, is that he taught us that you have these perceptions, but you don't have to necessarily buy into all of them. You can put them away for a moment and come back to them. And that's what this CRV system is. It allows you to sort out the thoughts. And we've also got Julie as a viewer right now. And she took the class when I did it in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, North Idaho, last year. And it was about May last year. And anyway, when I found the value of training. You have these perceptions come in. Some is noise, some is signal. It allows you just to not draw a conclusion about any of it and not judge any of it, but just put it there on the shelf for a moment and see if you want to come back to it if it feels appropriate. Sort it out. That's what RV is all about.
And that's a powerful tool because the human mind plays tricks on you. Your subconscious and your conscious, it says, oh, no, that's not right. This is bad. This is from your conscious. This is from your subconscious. And it takes that whole discussion and quiets that and gives it it's okay. That's natural. That's okay. This is what you're supposed to feel. Put it on the shelf, come back, check on it if you feel like it resonates with the other material. And, I'm really excited about this next class and going to that next level and adding these different layers. And I love Boulder. I love seeing you and interacting with the gang there. And
thanks. We have a question here from Patrick. I do have something to add into what you just said. Patrick said, "Did you find Bigfoot yet?" I was in the inland Northwest, and I have an area there where there have been Bigfoot sightings, and I spend a little time up there just to see if anything shows up or anything.
Yeah.
And the dog I was with, my partner's dog Pretzel, ran away one night and came back without her harness, which is important because it has reflectors on it, and so we can see in the dark. And
wow.
I said I'm going to use RV to find the harness because I know it's got to be in some area around here. So I went out twice the next morning, and I was sort of imagining, and it didn't work. I couldn't find it. Okay, but so after lunch, I said to Pretzel, we need to find the harness. And she took off.
What?
And I just followed her because dogs are going to go in places that your mind wouldn't. Don't you think any animal, they're not going to go where you think they're going to go. Yeah. And we found it. It was right there in the middle of a path that I had never been on before.
Wow.
And so the point is, RV is not only going where you think you should go, it's letting go and just following the signal to where it takes you into a new place. And even though this wasn't very far from the little camper, I had never actually been to this area. And it was like, there it was in the middle. So that's partly what RV is the reason you want to put some of the thoughts on the shelf is the target may be completely different than you expect. And those thoughts could contaminate the real data. You have to let the RV signal emerge without coloring it with your own advanced perceptions. And I think that's what we're saying. When I was out there with Pretzel, it sort of reminded me of that. You may think you know, but you don't. And you have to just let the source show you. And it was that lesson for me. It was that lesson.
And there's a magical sublimeness to all of this, because no matter how advanced you are as a viewer or a practitioner of these abilities, you can still dance around in your own mind as to whether this was subconscious or deeply lower conscious. And that's a wonderful aspect to it. A lot of people expect there to be a clean signal. It's like, here's the information. It's always in this tone, and you can always know that this is psychic information. You don't have that blessing. No. You have to determine this in a much more sublime, subjective kind of a way, almost like analyzing poetry. But other times, things just ring, with you. Other times you feel like a tuning fork or something, and you just know. It's, for those of you out there who are saying, oh, I can't get it, I don't have this ability, I don't feel it, first you have to believe and open up the door, for the light to come in, or open the window for the light to come in, and the light will come in. Just keep the window or the door open,
No, that's a very good point. You don't know exactly what it's going to be like. You just have to keep the window open and kind of what Da Vinci called confusion endurance. Going into the mist, sfumato.
Confusion endurance. Wow.
The Italian word is sfumato, and it means literally going into the mist, which people have translated as being able to endure confusion.
Oh, that's such a great analogy. All of this talking about.
Yeah. It seems like very creative people are doing RV naturally without any training whatsoever. Some people do it now, and those people that could see the future things, so probably really one of the most creative people ever to exist. And that was what he called it, a sfumato. And sfumato is being able to endure. And the longer you can do that, folks, in an RV session with the system I learned, CRV, whatever you learned, it's all the same thing ultimately. It's just different ways to get there. You're in letting the confusion exist and not having to draw a conclusion too soon about it, and letting it sort itself out, just like the dog taking you down the trail to find the harness. It is that signal finding ability you have can do it better than your conscious mind. Isn't that what the training sort of teaches us, is let it work? And it's uncomfortable in some ways because you don't know where you're going. But if you just relax a little bit, the worst that could happen is you just are off target, but so what? I mean,
exactly. And it's a classic thing of, do you fight the wave or do you ride the wave?
You ride the wave, yeah.
And, you can't fight the wave. You can't outdo the massiveness of the ocean, the gravitational waves. You can't change the waves, but you can change how you ride the waves, how you respond to the waves, how you listen to the waves, how you sense the waves. And those abilities are so crucial, and just the fact that your mom opened up so many doors for you, for these lights to come in, allowed all these different possibilities to come in, and for you to have very advanced thinking. You have very advanced thinking, Doc, and you have for a long time. You've known about the power of consciousness. You've known about the power of psi. You've known many of these things before, you're in the 0.005% of the population that really knew the value and the importance of this stuff. I don't know whether it's a sociologist or whatever, but you latched onto this stuff early. You used remote viewing to get on the block, basically, on the other side of the block of Ingo Swan's house, to meet Ingo on that porch, get all that incredible information.
We did do RV on his location before I got his phone number and called him. And we did get within 1 block of we were in 1 block of his building there on Bowery.
That's
down
amazing.
there. We were so close. We said, it just feels like his neighborhood. And it really was. It really was. We do have a comment here that's just so appropriate, Bud, to what you just said from Sunsaver. It just struck me, Sunsaver, what you said here, is that he's avoided talking to his family and friends about his experiences. He had to disown them because they're probably, they may not accept you the way you are. Isn't that right? It can happen. And I just had parents that encouraged me not to deliberately be weird, just not to care what other people thought from the get-go. They were just comfortable being themselves and not just keeping up with the Joneses and just doing what everybody else did. We used to have that thing called the Desiderata up on the wall here, which is March to Your Own Drummer. Yes. You remember that thing? I can still remember. It said, I read it, actually believed it. It said, don't just march to the tune, the beat of your own drummer. And I don't know, your parents put these things up on the walls. Well, I used to read that as a kid over and over. And I said, just march to the tune you're in. So this is sort of, and we would say to Sunsaver, listen, you have a new family, you have us, right? They may not accept you, but I mean, people are in their own private confusion, and you probably feel threatened by your imagination and openness to new ideas, and it's not you. They just don't know how to deal with this, and you just go to hang out with people that accept you the way you are.
And I would also say to Sunsaver that sometimes being an ambassador between new knowledge requires first acknowledging that you're that person. So accept that you are on this boundary of this new information. You're an ambassador of future information, of a greater reality. And you should have as much patience and love as you can in your expression of this, because you're an ambassador to so many people about this stuff. And this is not woo-woo. This is not, make-believe. This is real-world science. This stuff is connected to our universe. The ability to see distant places and times and hear them and affect them is a real-world physical science thing. We don't understand all the details. Like 200 years ago, we didn't understand the electromagnetic field. It was a bunch of weird paranormal things that were happening that people assigned to spirits and to God energy, and we shouldn't mess with it. And there were all these different strange phenomena, seemingly unrelated. But Volta made the connection and was the first to do some of the math and united, the electromagnetic field for us and solved these mysteries, or at least began to. And 200 years later, the field is so important to us. We couldn't imagine living life without the electromagnetic field. And I think this field that sun is getting scares people. This field in 200 years is going to be just as ubiquitous as the electromagnetic field is for society now. So just think of yourself, son, as being a little ahead of your time, but have the patience, of a sage.
It's so true, Bud. And thanks for saying that, because for all of us, myself included, it's very challenging. Sometimes every day can be challenging because you're around people that don't really get where you're coming from. And they're not going to accept you because they just don't understand what the heck you're. And it's okay. You don't need that from this is the thing. We've been brought up to believe you need to be accepted by everybody. You don't.
Yeah, Galileo didn't.
Yeah.
Think of Galileo, how alone he must have felt. And then at the end of his life, you told me about that he was blind. He was blind for like the last 10 years of his life.
He was under house arrest, and he was blind from the Vatican. The Inquisition, he had been imprisoned for his, it wasn't just his heliocentric ideas. He was imprisoned for not denying Copernicus.
Wow.
It was a very subtle charge, and he wasn't, they got him on, he was openly not denying Copernicus, something like that. If you read Wooten's book,
it's so poetic. He saw further than anybody else.
He did,
but he had to go blind because society was blind. In a way, it's almost like the deepest type of poetic incident. You know, the fact that Galileo saw so far. He worked with these lenses. He did so much in terms of science and our understanding. And he also, a lot of people don't know that he broached relativity before really Einstein did in several different ways. And for him to go blind is just, it's almost too poetic, you know? And so, you know, son, you don't have to go blind. Keep your vision. You have a family.
We live in very good times. Look, we can communicate like this with zero fear that anything is going to happen. But we can say anything we want, and our viewers can ask any questions, literally. We may get to the edge of YouTube's community guidelines, but those are really open compared to what people have lived under. Just think of the societies around us right now, North Korea, Cuba, until recently, very close by, that you couldn't, you know, lots of countries, probably still to this day, they're out there where you can't say what you really think. And we can get on here because we live in a society here with a First Amendment. I really believe we have this, and we can literally argue it out. We may not agree with each other, but we can have a very open discussion that goes probably farther than anyone else in recent history. And we will not be stopped. YouTube will not turn us off because we're engaged. So these are good times for all of us interested in this. And yeah, maybe 90% of the society won't understand where we're coming from, but that leaves another 10% that does. That's still pretty big.
You know, it takes two. This is a big meal, Doc. This is a big meal. This whole topic, it's not just the esoteric. It's not just psi and remote viewing and psychic abilities. It's also the whole extraterrestrial aspect, and they're connected. And it's, you know, this is a big meal. You can't swallow it in one bite. You will choke and die. You have to have the bites. And these bites are very logical, real science. You can walk the uninitiated through the hardcore science. If they're hardcore scientists, and let them know for 150 years, there's been dice studies. There's been studies on the mind's ability to affect reality. It's undeniable at this point. You can walk them through the CIA's stuff. You can walk them through all the science of that stuff. Then you can do the same thing with the UFO subject. And this is the most hardcore science data. So if they're the most materialist, you know, persons out there, you can, nowadays we do have the data to show that these things are real and that they're actually connected now. You know, for a long time, remote viewers were encountering ETs even when they didn't want to, because they didn't realize they're tapping on the field. And of course,
that is so true. You remember these early things they had Ingo tracking submarines
yes.
just as a test, and he said, "Wait a minute, there's a disc over the water. I see something over the submarine area," and they put a spy satellite on it, and it was there.
Yes, and not only that,
can you imagine
and people who did not really believe in UFOs, like McMonagle, he was doing viewings for the military and run across craft.
Is that right?
And yes, in fact, he drew a craft. They assigned him to draw the engine of the craft. He drew the engine of the craft, and it's that whole report is still classified. You can't get it. You can't get the engine. And I did a remote viewing of his remote viewing of the engine.
Wow.
So I have his feelings, his emotions, his stomach, his everything. He had stomach issues at the time, and his viewing, and I redrew the craft. And the craft is very unusual. It has things on each side of it like this, that are like movable little fingers on each side of the craft. Totally weird.
Well, we're all going to have to get used to this unknown. I mean, what we've been through up till now is nothing compared to where it's going, in my view, because if all of these craft are around, that's just the tip of the iceberg of another reality that we are in contact with. We have been flatlanders until recently. I always loved that book from 1882 by Edwin Abbott, Flatland, where they arrest people that believe there's a third dimension.
And it's such a wonderful analogy. That book's been revered, you know, talking about how you take an apple and you can put it on a table, you know, and 2 dimensions is just a slice.
We've been educated all around this ever since, you know, school. It's telling you to be normal, just to fit in, just to do what we say and don't, you know, and you are not inside a box. You're surrounded by this huge natural system. It animates every cell in your body, all the microbiome, all your own cells, and it's all working perfectly even without you thinking about it. And it will sustain you. And then we have this social system on top of that. That's why Ingo called it reality boxes. nothing wrong with social systems. It does keep us going. It does all this stuff works, but it's limited. It's not a bad thing. It's a limited thing. Don't get mad at it. It's why we're alive right now. We have modern conveniences and running water and things that people didn't always have. We can travel, we can communicate like this. It's amazing, but there are limitations. And this is why Leonardo da Vinci would always leave as much as he could his towns and go out into the countryside, because he always thought that nature was where the answers were, because society does what it can, but don't spend time getting mad at it for being a limited thing. It's just doing its best. That's the way I look at it, but it's a limited way of looking at it.
Think about it. Society's only existed for so long, and nature has been problem solving for a lot longer.
Very well said. Very well said.
And these are problem solvings that are very practical. Humans as a collective, we like to stay out of fear zones. We like to stay safe, but there's always going to be the more adventurous of us who go into the mist, as you say, and who go without fear, without prejudgment, and go into the mist open-minded and open-hearted. And I believe the reason why people always ask, how come you're having all these experiences? Why are you having all these experiences? And I think I'm open to them, first of all. I'm very open to them. And I think that allows them to come to you, just like remote viewing. I'm not out there chasing down ETs or wanting to have, sightings every single night. But if I dispose myself to it, I keep my heart, my mind open. If it chooses to make an appearance, it does, just like all the information. Remote viewing is staggering. Every remote viewing you do that's accurate is staggering. The ability to do something beyond statistics. There's some real magic here, and don't deny yourself this magic. None of our senses are perfect, but everyone here knows that their mom had some magical intuition. Moms have this intuition. My mom had a very powerful intuitive nature, and I, attribute all of my abilities to being just an eighth of hers. And mothers and the feminine, disposition is very open and tolerant, and where the masculine philosophy oftentimes is we must know, we must control. The second we lose control, we're in deep crap.
Yeah, no, true. It is true.
And what's wonderful about losing a little bit of the control you feel, just riding the wave, not trying to control
riding the wave. We do it every night we go to sleep. You're giving up a lot of control right there. But hey, here we are again in the morning. You wake up, it's working. Something's working perfectly, or you wouldn't be here.
And people like Sun, I think about people like Sun a lot. I've been so lucky. And for me, just in a selfish context, I'm able to talk to scientists or meet scientists or work at some of these different places and with really incredible scientists. So I can get validation that what I'm experiencing is actually real from someone that society says is a good judge of that, scientists. And that makes me feel more comfortable psychologically. But there's so many people out there having more incredible experiences, having much different incredible experiences that are just as valid, just as real, just as wonderful, that need scientific exploration and understanding people and display at the right times and everything. So, I think we're so lucky. And those of you out there, you may feel like Sun. You may feel a little bit like an outcast.
That is the thing. We've got our own family here. You're part of the Reality's Edge family. We're all in this together. Yes, and why bother to try to get approval from people that are not interested in what you're, who cares? Really, ultimately, they're just other people. That's what you learn as you go through this process is you don't need their approval. Going through RV and all this crop circles and my mom probably had to go through a lot of this with the neighbors who thought she was kooky for recommending vitamin C or all the stuff. And so after a while, I realized, well, so what? They're just another kind of person there, another big group of cells, another trillion cells. You don't have to have the approval of every single cell of the universe. We do have a question, though, Bud. Are you ever going to post that picture from your session of McMonacle's UFO session? You can answer either way. Someone just asked this.
Yeah.
Sleuth asked it. Your friend, Super Sleuth.
I am, and I thought I had posted it a long time ago. One of the problems is that my iPad, the battery died on it. Here it is. Oh, you can't see it.
There it is.
So the battery's completely dead, and the original drawing is on that. But I've emailed it before, so I can find it and I'll post it. Maybe what I'll do is I'll tweet it because maybe that's the best. What would you prefer, Super? The craft is so cool too because it has the little these little fingers on the opposite sides of an oval, and the engine it's kind of like a giant sphere with a belt that goes around the giant sphere, and then another sphere embedded at the top of the sphere, and it has no wires. Everything's all.
But Sleuth says she prefers a tweet. A tweet for the picture. So
do it for the picture. I will indeed.
So here's the question, folks. So we're finally admitting that these craft are real. No one is saying where they're from yet. I think even TTSA is not insisting anymore that they're extraterrestrial. They could be from Earth or from another parallel Earth. No one knows. But Bud, what's your sense of the next step in this disclosure, which we can see is not just the government, but it's kind of all of us saying, what in the heck is going on? What's the next step in this process? We've admitted the military has admitted they're real without saying too much. They haven't had a press conference. We haven't had something like that, but they've admitted in FOIA responses that these are real objects, that they don't know what they are. By the way, we had another witness come forward, I'm sure, Ryan Weigelt,
yeah,
who was also on the USS Princeton with Kevin Day, and
guys are heroes. All of them who come forward, they're heroes in my book. I mean, God bless Kevin. God bless all these whistleblowers coming forward. We love you.
Yeah, all the folks that were on the Princeton, and he said, he told us more that Air Force guys came and took sensors from the helicopters, which grounded the Princeton. He said he woke up and they were back in San Diego Harbor, which he said was unbelievable because that is the cruiser, the missile cruiser is the lead ship for the aircraft carrier. It's the main support ship. It has the missiles on it, and it has the Aegis radar.
Ben's the battle group. Yeah,
and the helicopters. One of them was offline. You can't be out there without your helicopters working. And then they had taken, and as he went up to deck, he saw their inflatable hard bottom boat, what they call a rib boat, going out to one of these islands where they store supplies with these two Air Force. It's like, so people had said no one came on board. It's all here. We have another fifth witness who saw it from his angle. In addition to what we heard from Patrick, PJ Hughes, and Jason Turner, that they.
About very early on, the fact that, of course, we know just logically there's a lot more video, but there is an incredibly clear video of a saucer from the incident. And
there is.
I don't know if we'll ever see that footage or not, but and I spoke about that, 8 months ago, about that footage being so impressive, so staggering. I would hope that the government would release more and more stuff. But I think, of course, it's not just the government in control here. I do believe that the advanced civilization has perhaps more of a decision in all of this, how much it allows us to see it, how much it responds to our responses.
Right.
I think, if you presume that that you're able to take advantage of an advanced civilization in so many different ways, you might be kind of a zoo animal thinking, have fun for on a zookeeper. People ask me all the time, buddy, how come you have this weird position about UFOs crashing all over the planet, that you think that the UFOs, the civilization, is doing this on purpose? Well, I would presume an advanced civilization could travel across the universe or time, space, or to have this incredible technology would be able to presuppose our most violent actions and have defenses against them. You would think that would be the most fundamental, basic thing. So why they're crashing like crazy all over the planet, I mean, it's indisputable at this point. It's obviously them kind of doing a rope-a-dope on us, making us believe we're shooting them down.
Yeah, I would imagine so. That was someone asked here why Commander Fravor disputed the whole idea that anyone came on board. Remember early on he said he thought it was BS. He would have known. But as Gary Voorhees told me, that the from the Nimitz, that also that the fighter pilots are in their own world, and the guys and women that run the ship are in their world. They're in separate worlds. The pilots don't know what's happening on the ship necessarily, and they're on a different end of the ship where they stay and their lounge and their, where they eat, and they don't necessarily intermingle, so they don't always know what's going on. But anyway, just to answer that question, since someone asked it,
no, that's
why there's
question.
Different points of view on this. Remember, as Luis Elizondo said in an interview, that Kevin Day is also a Top Gun trained radar operator, as Commander Fravor was a Top Gun trained, one of the top F-15 pilots. So Kevin Day was also one of the top radar operators in the world for that, for the Aegis radar system. So for the ship he was on, so his word counts equally. So there is different points of view. That doesn't mean, it does seem to be, in my view, that multiple people came on board in different ships to take the data bricks, as PJ Hughes told us. Anyway, we all know the story, but there's different points of view on it. And
with the car crash, there's a million points of view. With Rendlesham, we have very reliable witnesses who have different perspectives. And, that does cause us a little bit of problems in terms of, information and history and all that stuff. But even car crashes, two different people will have two different perspectives on it, so that adds to the confusion, unfortunately.
The early speculation was this some sort of military experiment? There was even someone that came to light recently that is from the Coast Guard. Did you see that about a week or two ago? Who said that someone called them down and said there's these exercises going on, and they saw a 3-foot long missile that could hover and then take off that looked Tic Tac like, but we're talking 3 feet. That is not a 40-foot long object that is there for. I mean, we dropped out of a SR-71 plane at 80,000 feet just because it was 80,000 and there were some similar altitudes. And Dave Beatty talked about this, the guy that did Nimitz encounters. But I mean, as Kevin told us, these objects were there for a week. He tracked over 100 objects moving south over Catalina Island. And that does not sound like some sort of experiment or exercise that you conduct to see how the sailors react. And this is there for a week. To me, it just doesn't feel like that. I guess I could be wrong. I'm just moving away from that possibility.
But I am also one who has more than just casual information as existence of anti-gravity technology within the U.S. military industrial complex. It exists. Anti-gravity exists, and the technology exists. But it's obvious that the stuff that I saw, and with my own eyes, I've seen before. There's technology that is just not even within the realm of a breakaway civilization.
Not in the realm of a breakaway civilization. Okay.
I've had fanciful thoughts of the ancient Greeks saw how important knowledge was, and how and how knowledge was destroyed, and how easily libraries can be destroyed, and how there's whims and fancies of leaders who run countries, and that knowledge is power. And it's conceivable the people who made the Antikythera mechanism, a computer 2,000 years ago, perhaps a small group made a decision to have a breakaway little group and to advance technology and science first, but stay hidden and not talk to others, and only the most initiated. And perhaps within our own society, we've advanced to this level. They talk about the guy in the blimp before blimps and was flying around. There's all these possibilities. And although I talk about a council and all these different things, I still have a completely open mind on all aspects of it. I say, this is the amount of information I have for this. This is the amount of information I have for that. And I keep the door and the window open. Nothing's closed yet for me. I'm not closed in and I figured everything out.
Guys, I think it's a good place. Why don't we just leave it at that, buddy? That's a very good statement. We've done a nice hour here. Wow. And it's kind of getting late on our end here on the East Coast. So let's just check for any last comments here. Thanks for watching, everyone. And so the great comments here. Anyone who's watching this, take a look. These will be in the replay. So thanks. Hey, thanks, y'all. We do this show for you. And we really love your comments. Bud, you can't see all these, but people are just writing so much interesting stuff in here.
Oh, I can't wait.
So thanks, everybody, for...
I love you, Doc, and you're a really important person to me as a friend and in my life and as an influence and inspiration. And I'm always delighted to unlearn with you every episode.
Yes, likewise. Likewise.
I'm glad that we're not being subhuman together.
Yeah, likewise. Well, but thanks very much. And we'll, so here's the thing, folks, for the next time, what we're going to do is we will attempt to get Buddy really on here video, but we're getting very close to getting the streaming encoding system to have 2 screens, not one. So thanks for watching, and happy Halloween, everyone, and we'll see you on Reality's Edge. How about that? And good night, Bud. Thanks for joining us.
Good night, guys.